Hey guys, welcome back. I hope you are having an amazing day. Let's get right into the stories. The first one is a pro-revenge story. When my parents, Samantha and Michael, first moved in back in 2012, my older brother Jake was only 2 years old and I was just a little kid. There was a neighborhood association back then. They collected monthly fees from all the homeowners, supposedly in exchange for their services. For a while, my parents just went along with it. The association claimed to handle snow removal from the streets in winter and deal with trash collection, so they seemed to be doing something useful, right? Ha! Wrong! The city was actually responsible for the snowplows and garbage trucks, not the neighborhood association. But still, they maintained the illusion of effort. And besides, one summer in 2015, they decided to hire a company to plant new trees all over the neighborhood. The fact that the company was owned by the son of the association's president was totally just a coincidence, I'm sure. Those trees were the beginning of the end for the neighborhood association. Why? Well, my Grandma Carol was visiting from my dad's side when they came around to plant the trees. Grandma Carol is a certified master gardener, and she watched from our living room window as the guys just dropped the bagged saplings onto the grass. No holes dug, no roots loosened, just pathetic little sticks lying there. The saplings stayed like that all night. No one came back to actually plant them properly. Grandma Carol mentioned that those poor saplings would die if they didn't get in the soil soon. And that's when something clicked in my mom's head. She was paying the neighborhood association money every month, while both she and my dad worked full-time jobs, took care of us kids, arranged daycare and babysitters, and kept the household running. And these clowns couldn't even be bothered to plant some trees correctly, despite taking everyone's money? Hell no. So Mom marched over to the association president's house and demanded that the trees get planted the right way, like she was supposedly paying for. The president, thrilled that someone actually cared about the neighborhood, made their second mistake. They asked if Mom wanted to join the association. She agreed. The trees eventually got planted, but most didn't survive. Grandma Carol had been right. First things first, Mom showed up at the next association meeting. There were like 5 people there. No wonder they'd asked her to join. They were desperate for members. So Mom looked around at this little group of white people, including herself, who weren't even paying the monthly fees like the rest of the neighborhood. All the contractors the association hired were close relatives of other members and didn't get paid by the association. After all, they're family, right? So Mom started digging. She spent pretty much the entire summer of 2016 taking down the neighborhood association before she had to go back to teaching in the fall. With me tagging along after her and Jake, old enough for school or daycare, she dug through years of financial records. And she found something eye-opening. The association didn't actually do anything to benefit the community. Anything they claimed to do was either covered by the individual homeowners or by the city itself. So they were collecting monthly fees from everyone under false pretenses, and they weren't even supposed to be operating in our neighborhood. Their association's jurisdiction was a whole different area. So what's a working mother of 2 young kids to do while her husband is at work and she's off for the summer? She goes door to door with pamphlets, that's what. Me and Jake in a stroller as she weaves through the blocks, handing out pamphlets explaining the situation and how to stop paying for services you'll never get. Pamphlets written in both English and Spanish to reach our diverse neighborhood. And of course, she got a lawyer and an accountant. It cost a pretty penny, but if it meant the entire neighborhood wasn't exploited for money each month, it was worth every cent. Another association member, Sarah, helped Mom sift through the documents and data and distribute pamphlets, encouraging people to attend the meetings, but Sarah had to back out due to work commitments. Mom rolled up to the courthouse in early 2017, flanked by the lawyer and accountant, with us kids safe at home with Dad. She had more than enough evidence to get the neighborhood association kicked out, expose the fraudsters, and make sure no one would ever try pulling that scam in our neighborhood again. It's been over 5 years now, and no one's even attempted to start another neighborhood association here. The next one is an entitled people story. My next-door neighbor, Karen, is the epitome of an entitled nightmare. Ever since she moved in last year, it's been non-stop drama. At first, it was small things, like complaining about my kids playing basketball in our driveway because it was too noisy, or calling the homeowner association when my grass grew half an inch too long. Annoying stuff, but nothing worth getting worked up over. That all changed a few months ago when I caught her trying to move the property line between our yards in the middle of the night. I woke up to get some water and happened to glance out my back window just in time to see 2 guys quietly working on taking down the wooden stakes marking the boundary. Karen was right there next to them, holding a flashlight and directing their every move. I didn't bother confronting her then. I just grabbed my phone, snuck outside, and recorded a video of what they were doing from my back deck. Even got some nice clear shots of Karen's face as she shined the flashlight right at the camera. The next morning, I went straight to the county clerk's office with the evidence. Turns out Karen had already filed paperwork claiming that according to a recent survey, my property line was 10 feet further into my yard than it should be. She presented falsified documents and maps to make it look legit. If I hadn't caught her in the act, I'd have lost a huge chunk of my land. Luckily, the video proved her scheme and got the phony paperwork tossed out. You'd think that would be the end of it, but oh no. Karen wasn't nearly done yet. Over the next few weeks, she constantly harassed me and tried to make my life miserable. She submitted complaint after complaint to the homeowner association about my yard being an eyesore, even though it looked better than hers. She blasted music at all hours and did all kinds of passive-aggressive nonsense trying to get under my skin. Her piece de resistance was when she somehow got her giant motorhome parked sideways across the property line in her new, wider yard. I couldn't even get my car into my own driveway without hitting it. Every time I asked her to move it, she'd scream at me about her land and threaten to call the police. Finally, I decided enough was enough. If Karen wanted to play hardball, then game on. I knew her Achilles heel was that tacky RV of hers. She loved lounging in there for hours with a glass of wine, feeling like she was at some ritzy vacation resort. So one night I snuck into her yard Mission Impossible style and proceeded to wrap the entire monstrosity in plastic wrap. We're talking top to bottom, front to back, every last inch covered in layer upon layer of industrial strength plastic sheeting. Karen must have used up half a bottle of wine before she finally stumbled out and discovered her posh palace had been turned into a low-budget art installment. The enraged shrieking and cursing echoed all through the neighborhood. But sadly for her, I made sure to only use materials available at any grocery or hardware store. She had no proof I did it, and it didn't damage her precious RV. Karen soon realized she was fighting a losing battle. A couple days later, I came home to find the property line markers back in their proper places, and her RV moved completely into her own yard. Chalk up another victory for petty revenge. Though I figured that would be the end of it, Karen apparently just couldn't let it go. A week later, I was sued by one of those scam legal companies claiming I had vandalized her motorhome. She even tried telling the police I was harassing and stalking her. Unfortunately for Karen, I had surveillance cameras installed which captured her failed boundary moving attempt. Her ridiculous lawsuit was laughed out of court in minutes. In a twist I didn't expect, Karen ended up being the one charged with harassment and filing false reports. Turns out this wasn't the first neighbor she had terrorized. After reviewing my evidence, the police opened an investigation into her pattern of nuisance behavior and fraudulent legal claims. She's now awaiting trial and facing some pretty hefty fines and jail time. The neighborhood has never been more peaceful. So the moral here is don't mess with petty people who have too much time on their hands. We don't get mad, we get even in the most creatively annoying ways possible. The next one is a petty revenge story. We live close enough to the elementary school that we don't get the bus option. And since we only have one car and my husband works earlier than school starts, I have to walk my two boys to school and home every day. There is one house where 7 out of 10 times the 3 dogs are either charging the fence or attacking the window in the house when we walk past, and they sound and act completely feral. It scares my boys, especially when the dogs are inside, because one will body slam the window, barking his fool head off. We try to stop talking and walk past as quick as we can normally. Well, lately with the nice weather, they are doing a ton of gardening and have made a lovely flower bed right along the fence line. These people have been outside when the dogs are barking and charging the fence, but have never done anything. I still rush by with the boys when they are with me, but the last few days when I am alone, I have purposely slowed down a lot and mess with my phone right beside of the flower bed. Half of them are dead or dying now, and the owners have finally been just yelling at them, but one of them really wants to know what I taste like. So now the flower bed looks like shit. I can totally understand a dog giving a warning barking, watching us and protecting his property, but snarling and snapping through the fence is a bit excessive. It's one of those old-fashioned iron fences. The next one is a malicious compliance story. This is a few years back, but working this holiday season, I retold the story to coworkers and felt this was a good place to post. Also, it's a bit of a long one. TLDR, Karen wants to order her chicken breast, has to wait like the rest of the customers. To preface, I am a career butcher, and at the time was working for the food hole. If anyone isn't familiar, the meat department becomes crazy around November, and doesn't abate until after Christmas. We took holiday orders in person then, now mostly all online, unless they're odd. As you might imagine, the orders are usually for standing rib roasts, tenderloins, hams, turkeys, and ducks geese. They really add up. And for my boss, sorting all the paper orders is a nightmare. Enter Karen. I would like to place a holiday order. Me. Gets relevant info. Cool. What would you like on the 24th? K. 1 lb of boneless chicken breast. Me. Oh, no problem. You actually don't need to order that. We'll have plenty of regular chicken, steaks, and burger. You only need to place an order for roasts, etc. K. I had to wait forever last year. This year, I don't want to wait, so I'll order it. Me. We'll have 2 lines, so if you're just coming to get regular items, you won't need to wait in the order line. K. But I want to make sure. At this point, I was already way done, so I decided I would comply. Maliciously. I took her order, then proceeded to inform every single person in my department of the situation and the plan. The day of, she came up, told the guy at the counter she wanted chicken breast. Having been warned by me, he asked, "Did you pre-order it?" K. Yes. Coworker. Okay, let me go search through the sheet to find your order. K. You can just grab it from the case. C. No, we already have yours put away. I'll find it. I wouldn't want it to get lost in the cooler and go bad over Christmas. K. Frustrated. Okay, coworker goes to our order book, searches through, and finds her name, and says, "Okay, I found you on the list, now I just have to find your order." Coworker enters cooler, and as trying to find a pack of chicken breast in a cooler full of roasts is like trying to find a needle in a haystack, it took him about 15 minutes. At multiple points through the ordeal, other employees greeted her. She tried to get them to get her chicken breast, and they all told her, because I had warned them, that she had to wait for the ones specifically put aside for her. I estimate that she waited almost 30 minutes, including line time to get to our counter. The next one is an entitled People Story. Hello, I kinda wish I had my own Karen story to post here, but apart from farting into a vent to get back at a bad housemate, I don't have anything else interesting of my own to share. But I do have one story from a former friend of mine. We aren't friends anymore since he just got more toxic with time, and it likely stems from his mother, who was a real Princess Peach in her own right. Her husband died when her son was a teenager, and she quickly remarried. My former friend, FF for short, did not like his new stepfather, and it was a mutual hate as the man had his own kids he moved into the house. FF turned 18, moved out and into an apartment above his grandparents' garage, and we met when we were both 20. We were coworkers that hit it off well. I was new to the area at the time, and he helped me figure the city out. For 5 years, he and I were like brothers. We knew everything about each other, but then he started to get demanding. And one day he punched me for suggesting he get a mental health check. He refused to apologize, and we went our separate ways. I'm 30 now, and haven't heard from him in a long time now. FF's mom was a whole other can of vodka-soaked gummy worms, though. This woman was clearly narcissistic, and FF cried to me about her many times. She showed up at his apartment constantly, and she was always trying to volunteer him to do things. He told me that before he moved out, she would regularly tell friends and relatives that he would come over and do chores for them, and then force him to do it, either for free or his mom would keep the money if he was paid anything. Eventually, FF's grandparents had to open up a checking account for him to deposit any money he earned into, so he'd have something to use when he became an adult. FF's mom lost her mind and demanded access to the account. She claimed before that she'd only been holding on to FF's money for him till he was of age, but they knew she spent it because she never willingly returned a cent. FF's grandparents made her pay back $200, even though it was likely more than that. And she acted like they were robbing her, even though she'd basically been robbing FF for years. Fast forward to when FF and I are best friends. I watched him get in several confrontations with his mother. And after a while, he came up with something I thought was genius. He got a generic spray bottle filled with water and kept it in reach by the front door. When his mom would start yelling at him when he talked to her while she stood outside, he'd squirt her in the face and tell her no like a dog when she got belligerent. FF, thanks to help from his grandparents, managed to afford a car. It was just an old minivan, but he treated it like his baby. FF's mom flipped her lid because she felt it unsafe for FF to have a car. She never helped him get his license. His grandparents had to do that. FF's mom never really had a good reason as to why she didn't want him to drive, but she nagged at him about it anyway. FF told me the real reason she was so angry was that FF owning his own car meant that he could go far away and never come back if he wanted to, and she wanted to keep him under her thumb. Then FF's mom went from nagging about how he shouldn't be driving to him needing to share the van with his eldest step-sibling. This kid was 16 or so and had a permit hot off the press. Not a license, a permit. FF understandably didn't trust this kid and told his mom no. His stepbrother would not be driving his car. His mom showed up again with the whole step family in tow, and they gave FF a big speech about how he needed to help family. He told them he'd call police if they even touched his van. The next day he found both sides of his van had been keyed, the paint already sucked, but this didn't help. Fortunately, the apartment complex had CCTV, and it showed FF's stepdad doing the deed. He was given a choice to either repaint the van or FF would press charges. The man repainted the van himself. Wasn't great paint, but it was an improvement. The van went from patchy metallic green to white. The final thing that happened with FF's mom before FF and I stopped being friends was she attempted to force FF to renounce any claim to his grandparents' will. FF's grandparents had become so fed up with their daughter's entitled narcissistic behavior that they said they'd change their joint will to give everything to their grandson. FF was elated by this, but his mother, not so much. She had a meltdown about it, and FF got threats from his stepdad. FF just told them that he'd take all evidence of harassment to police if they didn't leave him alone. And they finally did. They'd stopped talking to FF completely by the time we parted ways. So that's it. The only Karen story I have to tell. The next one is an entitled parents story. So it's Mother's Day and my mom is absent in our lives until now. I won't go into my whole life story, but TL Doctor tried her best but made hard by being emotionally unstable, unavailable, and would aid it with alcohol and verbal fights. Okay, the reason why we're here. I, elder sibling, got kicked out with my dad in 2021. Shit got worse in early 2022 with her in financial. Kicked my second oldest sister out during that time. Mom's mom died later that year in September. Forced the rest of my younger siblings to live with us for no reason after it. Horrible funeral, weak due to her shit-talking, and has been absent pretty much since then. Sure, my younger siblings had the visits every other week, but it slowly turned into months, and now going into more than half a year. During the months of no visits, she would text my younger siblings through social media. We come from a foreign family, so older family members don't have much of an English grasp, unless it's my dad, multilingual MF, and her messages got more articulated in English grammar. At first it was more noticeable with the emails between my parents with her usual simple and poor one-sentences, all of a sudden proper English with paragraphs. It took so time after those first emails that the text between my siblings and mom started to look the same as the emails. This may be wrong on our part, but we had suspicion that someone else was texting for her, so Dad found some new guy that was friends on Facebook with her, and when the kids visited her, they confirmed that it was the same guy living with her. Dad found the 2 ex-wives, out of 3, of his, and found out he's a huge con artist that's not allowed to fly internationally. Due to his arrest as a con artist, his visa is stripped. The new boyfriend's plan usually was to meet some hopeless women, have a kid, and then get married, then proceeded to lie about needing money for sick family in the USA. At first he was in the USA, then left to the CAD after he left his first wife. He proceeded to do that for the rest of them. Currently, he's not allowed to talk to the kids from his first and one of the kids from his third ex-wives, while he's still allowed visitation rights for the other one and the one he has with his second ex-wife. You may be wondering why this was included, but it's because since Dad still talks to the second and third ex-wives, he's found out that Mom has been seeing her boy toys kids more than her own kids, since he needs a supervisor when he visits his kids. When we found out he was texting for Mom, Dad emailed them telling him to stop texting to the younger kids as Mom, or else the cops were going to get involved. He replied showing no means to stop, and this had happened in December 2022, January 2023. Ever since then, they stopped trying hide the fact that it was him texting as her, and slowly over time though, we had blocked her on all social media platforms. Before we had blocked her though, my oldest younger sister started texting Mom, telling her to leave us alone and that us, as the kids didn't want anything to do with her anymore until she stopped the abusive cycle she's put us all in. During all of that, she was calling the same sister at random times at night, which started to affect her mental health really badly, and she couldn't go to school cause of it. It got worse when she randomly showed up at my hair and my little brother's school doing something with their school information. Mom tried saying hi and saying she missed them, which scared my sister more, thinking she was going to show up again. She tried telling Mom that what she was doing was affecting her really badly. They proceeded to respond in the most foolish way, thinking that Dad was texting, when my sister was trying to be the most professional she could be in that situation. After that situation, all the siblings blocked Mom on everything, and Mom had previous encounters on social media already, so I kept her unblocked on Gmail so I could laugh at the emails she can send, like today. The first email is proof how they would respond when they thought it was Dad, and the second one is from today, and you can see the grammatical difference between the two, which explains our suspicions and why we did what we did. By the way, the reason why we can't do anything to restrict communication between Mom and my siblings is because here we have a law where only 15 plus can get some sort of a restraining order against someone, and the oldest sibling of the youngest is a year or two from being able to, and for Dad, this all still going through court trials, this why 2022 was crappy to begin with, Cause of that, Dad's been trying cooperative while Mom has been doing the complete opposite, causing the court stuff to drag on. As much as what we're doing isn't the nicest or what you would call supportive, but 18 plus years of neglect, harm, and deprivation has caused a lot of pain and struggle coming into adulthood, and with Mom doing these moments still, I feel like I'm getting dragged back into my little self. Every one of my siblings shows their hurt from her in their different ways, but not gonna lie, with these months of no communication with Mom, I've seen my family grow into people we should have been growing up with her. I don't have my old habits like tiptoeing every day just for talk or food, or having to blast music 24/7 into headphones because she'd always scream at anyone for doing something wrong. We joke without worrying about someone commenting negative. We can play and roughhouse without yelling. We can be loud without someone screaming to shut the hell up. We can do our chores whenever we can, not being screamed at to do it at this moment. There's been ups and downs with our growth, but this is a lot better than being not human living with her. This year's Mother's Day hasn't been pleasant, but I do enjoy the company of my grandmas, alive and dead. Happy Mother's Day. Thank you for watching. I would really appreciate it if you could like the video and subscribe to our channel if you haven't already. We'll see you again tomorrow.